So we're going to change gears a little bit and look at businesses seizing the moment. And I am joined by David Pettet, the head of sustainability at Nomad Foods, Monique when she joins us, Mario Abreu, the head of sustainability at Ferrero, and we've practiced this name a bunch, and I'm still going to mess it up. Michaele?
Shall I say it?
Yes, you shall.
Michaele. Or Michelle.
I know, but that's embarrassing. Hawkins, the sustainability lead, EMEA at FM. So companies have been part of the sustainability transformation conversation for over a decade now. What is different about the current environment that necessitates businesses to be even more innovative and more focused on sustainability? Missing Monique here.
We had two interesting conversations out there.
So Monique Lempers, the Chief Impact Officer at Fairphone.
Yeah.
All right. So I was asking, what is different about today and the role that businesses need to play in innovation and sustainability, risk and resilience? Let's start with you, my dear friend, Miss Hawkins.
Okay, so I think I'm probably unusual in terms of this conference and the people in the room in that I come from insurance, financial services sector. So we've heard a lot from, and we're here a lot from my colleagues on the panel from manufacturing. But I think in insurance and financial services, we've been quite inward looking on our sustainability journey to date. Inevitably, compliance and regulation has played a big part. But I think we're slowly starting to see that we need to work more with the people that we insure. So at FYM, what we call our clients, to help them on the sustainability journeys and make them more resilient. So as an insurance company, we're slightly different. We're an insurance company run by engineers. So we like to, if you work with engineers, which I'm sure a lot of you do, we like to mitigate any risks so we don't have any claims. So we're increasingly more working with clients to help them build their resilience. So I think that's one big thing. And then from the financial services insurance sector as well, as we all know, we're seeing a real change in the climate change weather-related events, and there's loads of stats around it. But as well as the severity and increase, we're also seeing some changing patterns, which are challenging for us as an insurer. So we've got a whole set of climate scientists that are looking at why the sea in the Mediterranean is heating up, how that's impacting on things like rainfall in Spain last year when we saw, this massive event that was caused by a whole host of different things. So we're trying to kind of mitigate risk there. And then again, in California, in LA, the wildfires, that was around the wind and coming closer to urban conurbation. So how we can work with in our insureds to kind of mitigate those risks. And it's definitely a changing financial services sector in terms of sustainability, but we've still got a long way to go generally across the sector, I think, in terms of changing our mindset.
David, let's turn to kind of, if this is the shifting financial perspective, you're kind of on the forefront in a lot of ways of the reasons that businesses should step up for sustainability. What's your perspective? What's different now?
Yeah, no. For those who don't know, Nomad Foods, we're Europe's largest frozen food company. So food is absolutely critical to the business. I think what Michaele has really explained well is certainly, we're living in a very volatile world. We're seeing obviously the impacts of climate change. You've also got geopolitics, tariffs, etc. So one thing that's certainly for our business is the way that business has been done over the last 50 years in a prolonged period of stability it has changed. And fundamentally, there needs to be a recognition and an evolution, which is exactly the journey we're going on, around how do we start transforming our business to be more suitable to operate in this more volatile world. So a lot of that is very much looking at how do we build supply chain resilience through the work that we do, the supply chains we have. It's looking at the consumer angle as well and making sure there is that commercial lever for investment within sustainability initiatives within the wider supply chain as well. So lots happening. I think the key message is because of the uncertainty in the overall direction of travel, plus the current headwinds businesses are facing, this is a very uncomfortable topic for executives, but we need to start the journey.
Yes, and so that I do want to talk a little bit about that. Given the volatility in global markets, global trade environments, what does that mean for companies then, Mario? When you're sitting there speaking to your CEO, for instance, how do you talk about the need to think about sustainability differently?
I think what has changed is that some years ago, working on sustainability was perceived to be doing the right thing or the ethical thing or something. But now the insurers come to ask questions to me. They never did it before. The banks ask questions because they never did it before. So the CFO asks questions because he never did it before. It's not anymore a topic where the climate change is happening, where there's going to be disruption, where something, doesn't matter the reason. What is happening is disruption, things are not the same as they used to be. Paul Polman said today is not about, we're always thinking linearly and suddenly things start to happen exponentially and nobody's prepared for that. So I think we are less questioning why we're doing it. Is it because we are ethical, because we are good people, or we're just doing things because we need to do them as part of making the business resilient and making the business strong?
So thinking about, Monique, the different set of stakeholders you might be accountable to in this changing world. It sounds like Mario thinks he's accountable to the CFO now in a way he wasn't before. How have you seen those dynamics shift? Have they shifted for you?
So first of all, Monique from Fairphone, we are an electronics company that bring to market the most sustainable phones and headphones. And I, from Fairphone's point of view, don't think that our stakeholders have changed. At the end of the day, our key stakeholders are the people in the supply chain, nature, right? We want to have a positive impact there. What I do see, and of course we have our customers that expect us to deliver on both quality as well as our impact. And what I see changing is more, I think, in the industry around me. Sometimes we say out of something bad often comes something good, and I really hope that this time it is the case, because the disruption that we are facing at the moment does make us talk today a lot about how can and should we become more resilient. And to be honest, I think that there are a lot of companies here that already found a way to become more resilient because they have been working on sustainability already for a longer time. And they know that when you invest in your supply chain and when you invest in your people and when you look beyond just short-term financial gains, but you think about how can I more sustainably in the longer term drive value on the different levels, that makes you really a resilient company. And I think that is what I hope the rest of the industry now also starts to work on.
I have been wondering, and maybe this is in the forward-looking panel, this might be the place to talk about this. Have we gotten so stuck in this sustainability language, and instead, actually, sustainability should be resilience? That we are, all of the people in this room who are working on sustainability are actually the chief resilience officer. Is that fair?
I would say it's more than that. It's not about resilience. It's about enabling long-term business growth. That's fundamentally what it is. And I think the roles of heads of sustainability or sustainability teams nowadays is twofold. One, to obviously, they need to look across the entire value chain of the organization. And then there's obviously a huge amount of work that needs to be done in terms of building resilience in the supply chain that drives cost efficiencies, continuity of supply, etc. And in our business, we do that a lot around fish sourcing, vegetable sourcing, decarbonization in order to offset carbon pricing risk. But then in the other piece, in terms of the growth opportunity, we know consumers, and I think obviously it will be different in different sectors, but certainly our consumers do care about sustainability in the purchasing decisions they make around food. So it's around how we then bring that to life in the brand narrative that we tell, and that in a way drives top-line growth, greater sort of brand penetration. So it's really a combination of the two. Resilience building, protect the bottom line, and then enabling top-line growth through our brands.
And I also think that we have, because we have been doing this for so long, I think we have a stronger word to say when helping the companies defining new directions. Because we know that the business are changing, and I don't think the choices the companies are doing for growth, for resilience, can be taken without considering sustainability as part of the equation. And I think we have that role now, which is becoming more prevalent.
So you're saying you're a sustainability officer, a resilience officer, and an innovation officer.
Maybe.
I think the trouble about some of the language around sustainability, and my colleagues are here today have heard all sorts of acronyms and said to me, Michelle, I don't know how, I don't understand. We get wrapped up in acronyms, we get wrapped up in language. And so we are called ESG, sustainability, responsible business. I've had all of those across my career, but we're not very good at actually telling that story. So yeah, we might be resilient, but we also might be helping the people that work within our business or the communities where we operate. So we need to move beyond the acronyms and what we call ourselves to telling the story, that bigger picture, be that producing mobile phones, which are ethical, looking at agricultural production, all of that piece. We're still, and then tying that into the business value. We need to always tie that back into the return on investment. And we've probably been doing it for too long. We get caught up in our own little world, and we just sometimes need to open up our eyes and look to the future a bit more.
That's what we're doing here. We're looking to the future. For those companies who have struggled perhaps to adjust, to innovate, to build resilience, Monique, what advice do you give them of how to get started? How do you build out your kind of first steps in taking those next leaps forward around resilience, sustainability, et cetera?
I think before you take the first step, it starts with a vision, with really looking longer term than only 1 year, 2 years. Think about, what value can you generate across your value chain in 5 years, maybe in 10 years? What potential is there? Think triple value. Actually, I think we're value officers, chief value officers.
Chief value officers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit of a competition with the chief financial officer. So yeah, I think at the end you need chief triple value.
Value is a bit broader.
Triple value. Yeah.
Chief triple value officer.
Yes.
Meet Monique, everyone.
Yeah. No, but it's really doesn't everyone want to work for a company that generates value and profit people, planet? I mean, at the end of the day, that's also why a lot of people, it's so easy to recruit people for us. I think when you're a sustainable company or when you have these triple values more clear, it's so easy because that's what the new generation wants. They want to work for a company that is beyond profit. And but back to your question, that was
what advice can you give people?
So it's really taking a longer and broader perspective of just short-term financial gain. Yeah, it's actually and then start thinking, setting some targets on how can you generate more value than longer term and on different levels, and how can those strengthen each other, and then set concrete targets and start measuring it and start integrating it into your business. It's not super difficult. It's more a mindset, I think.
Yeah, and how do you get stakeholders to buy into that mindset shift?
I think certainly from my perspective, just building on Monique's point, I think tangibly 3 things, particularly coming from an organisation that's probably further on the journey than many organisations. The first is know who your allies are at different levels of seniority within the business, because particularly at the moment, you will need to divide and conquer within an organization and sort of navigate that. So understand who your sponsors are and look at how you drive that there. The second point linked to that is try to reframe whatever you're doing from a value creation perspective through the lens of the commercial business and how it will help support the commercial objectives of the business. That's absolutely critical, building on the point Michaele raised about language within the context of today. And then the final piece here, which is absolutely critical now, to try to transcend or bridge the gap between abstract ESG sustainability issues and what does that actually mean tangibly for the business, is try to bring examples of inaction to sustainability issues and action and what the commercial return has been. So from a food business, talking about, well, we've seen the impacts of climate change on crop yields this year. That's driven inflation up and it has had an impact on many food business. Practical point to really put in perspective what that looks like. And then conversely, we have lots of examples where we've demonstrated that we've increased our sales through telling a great brand sustainability message. Using that really makes it concrete and enables the business to then get on board and drive it forward.
If I follow from Monique's angle, I also think that people love to work for companies that consumers love their products.
And you do well then.
Yes. So the thing is, I also feel that we have to bring the consumer into this and make the communication to the consumer easier, because we don't want to alienate the consumer of your products. Our products are on the shelves of the supermarkets. So we have to find a way to also tell the story and make the life of the consumer easier, because we know it's very complex. Every decision you make has trade-offs. So we have to find that way, creating for the consumer the reassurance that the products we're making are embedding sustainability and are resilient, whatever word we want to have. Your products are not suffering because of the changes, the geopolitical changes and the climate change and everything else.
Do you have an example of how you've made that communication work within Ferrero?
Yeah, we try to work with digital communication to the consumers that kind of subscribe to our websites and so on, because we feel that a lot of consumers, they want reassurance. So rather than just kind of using messages that might be seen by people that don't like the product, we try to communicate to those that we know really like the products. They really, they consume the products, they like the products, and we try to provide them reassurance that all that we are doing for sustainability, it's clear to them and they understand why we're doing what we're doing.
How do you engage stakeholders and customers? What have you found effective?
I mean, we have a different type of product in terms of the commercial property insurance. But I think what we try and do is when we're working with people that we want to insure or with our current clients, we want to use our engineering and our climate scientists' expertise to reassure them that we can help mitigate the risk. So if I think of one client that we have who had a manufacturing site in Poland that was in a floodplain, and we provided our engineering support to them to look at how they could mitigate that risk should they be flooded. We have a whole set of products which are FM approved, like to support with any flooding, fire, etc. And we would work with that client and try and explain the whole kind of piece that we can do around it. It's a different message, but it's the same message in terms of why we're doing it as well, because we're a mutual. So if we don't have a claim, then we pay out, then we're not paying out, and that helps our clients. We also have something called a climate resilience credit. So we pay back to our clients, and they can use that money to mitigate the risk within their manufacturing sites, for example.
So I have a sort of sidebar question. As we think about chief value officer, maybe chief vision officer, in insurance, as more and more areas become almost uninsurable, how do you prevent your kind of sustainability knowledge and your tracking of climate from making it impossible to kind of hire you? So if you have this client who's in a floodplain in Spain, are you willing to insure them?
If we can help support them to mitigate that risk, yes.
Different than home insurance, at least in the
Very,
US.
yeah. And I mean, so the US market in home insurance is so different from the one in the UK where I come from. And yeah, there are in the US, in California, for example, there are insurance companies that will not insure properties. That isn't the case in the UK. But yeah, commercial property insurance completely different in that aspect. We will work with clients to help mitigate that. We would never want to see a client not covered.
I'm feeling better about insurance. This is very good. I guess to look forward, obviously we live in a very complicated world. It's gotten more complicated probably in the past 18 months. Do you believe that companies have the power and will to drive global widespread transformation needed to offset the setbacks at the government and population level that we've seen over that period? Are all of you sitting here the next agents of change?
From a food perspective, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we can't do it, who can, right? So we can and we should, and I think that's why we're all here today. Yeah, that's it.
I agree, and fundamentally, these issues are existential to food. If we want to be able to feed a growing population up to 10 billion by 2050, I think it is, address the health challenges associated with diet, climate change, nature, we need to transform how we do business and the product that we deliver. And that represents a huge opportunity for food businesses to do that. The North Star is there. I see that we just got a little short to medium term bump. We just need to embrace it and drive it forward from within.
Bump rhymes with...
Yeah.
I was in New York Climate Week 2 weeks ago, and I had a meeting with insurers, and what I learned was that European agriculture is largely uninsured. African agriculture is totally uninsured. So I think we also have a responsibility with those that are providing ingredients to us, agriculture, fish, whatever, fisheries, because the situation is becoming more complicated for them as well. So it's the resilience of our business, but it depends on the resilience of them as well. And I think the insurers are starting to look at this and trying to look at how can we make the right projections towards the future to really understand what is the right way of creating the premiums and to set up the right forms of not only ensuring, but securing that the producers will continue to grow. Because we talked about regenerative agriculture here this morning a couple of times, and whatever you call it, better agricultural practice, whatever it is, you have a transition, and in this transition, the yields are not going to be the best. You have to set aside land to create to grow different trees from the products you have, to create some sort of agroforestry. All of this will require funding. And we are at that moment that we are all understanding the business has changed, and that we need to understand across our value chains where are the pain points, and how can all of us be the investors, the financial community, the producers, what's our role in order to support these businesses going forward.
Michaele, did I get that slightly right? No? Okay. What conversation do you hope we'll be having in 5 years' time at this closing panel?
I hope that we won't be talking about disparity of regulation. I know that's come up a lot. I hope we still won't be talking about data and data challenges. I hope we'll be talking about things like Mario's talked about microfinance, microinsurance for the global south. So we are looking across the whole of our global community that ultimately we all rely on. And I hope we'll be telling stories of hope, and the people in this room are involved in building those stories.
I don't think we can end on a better note than that. Thank you all so much. And thank you for being such good participants.
Thank you.